Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
do you know what I'd say if someone asked me to describe what makes these two games we're talking about this week unique?
What would you say?
I'd say there's no difference between them. Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your host, Madelyn.
I'm your other host, Emma.
Host.
And there are differences.
Okay.
The gameplay is different.
Okay, sort of though.
It is. One is more frantic, and one is like Dark Souls-like.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. For those of you who maybe, like me every week, have already forgotten what we're going to be talking about this week, Emma's texts reminding me this week were particularly memorable. Because every week I text and I'm like, when are we recording this week? And Emma's like, Friday night? And I'm like, I work Friday nights. I'm like, there's one 20-minute window of time where we can record this hour-long episode. And Emma says, great, I want to be in bed then, but we'll record. And then after that delightful exchange, I say, by the way, what are our games this week?
She's pretending like she only asks me once during the 2-week stretch between our episodes. Like she only texts once what the games are. You text me at least 3 times.
That's not true.
During those 2-week stretches being like, what's this one again? Sometimes you'll ask for both them. Sometimes you'll be like, what's the new one again? I can't remember. You know?
Listeners, you'll
It's
be glad
definitely
to
true.
hear. You'll be glad to hear that this week I have a full-on notes sheet on the games so that I can talk competently about them.
Madelyn's gone above and beyond.
It's more than if you read our Reigns Her Majesty blog on the website, which by the way you should do because it's funny, you'll know that Emma generally learns about and plays games frequently before we talk about them, and I don't do that.
Yep.
So, anyway, all of this to say, I didn't even finish the story. You were roasting me, and I didn't even finish the story. So I asked Emma, I said, what are we talking about this week? And she says, Devil May crying face emoji. But then she's like, oh no, I should have done devil face pink flower crying face emoji.
I think that's a pretty good summary of the game itself, too.
That should be the title of this week's episode.
I can't actually put that into iTunes,
not the
I'm
emojis.
pretty sure.
Devil face, pink flower.
Oh, like with
crying
little
face emoji.
asterisks around them?
No, just straight up.
Oh, okay.
I'm already calling it. That'll be the title of my mashup for this week, and I'll figure out a way for it to work. Anyway, so that's the story. There's, as is typical with my jokes, the punchline was kind of overwhelming. They're underwhelming, not overwhelming.
Sometimes it's overwhelming.
That's fair. So for those of you who, like me, forget multiple times over the course of our bi-weekly main episode schedule what games we'll be talking about, it's going to be Devil May Cry for our old game, although, again, we've been pretty good at picking punctual games lately, so they just released an HD remaster of the series.
Yeah, for the next gen. I think they might have already done one for the last generation. Now they've brought it to the newest generation.
Yeah, I think you're right. But now it's really high def.
Yeah.
So Devil May Cry is the old game. And our new game is Nioh. Nioh.
Yep.
Oh, I could have made a gnocchi joke. Shoot.
Ah, darn.
Oh, that was a missed opportunity right there. Dang it. Oh, well. And Emma, you were saying in our last episode, you've actually played a little bit of Nioh, right?
I don't think so.
Wow, I made that up. Okay, never mind. Why did I remember that?
I like with Zelda, but in a different way. I've assessed myself personally, and I decided that Dark Souls is not the right fit for me. and so something that's like Dark Souls is also not the right fit for me.
But we are getting ahead of ourselves here. We have to talk about our old game first.
Yes.
Devil face, pink flower, crying face emoji.
Exactly.
Also known as Devil May Cry.
That was the working title, I'm pretty sure.
I guarantee you it was not, because the working title was Resident Evil 4. Emma.
Yeah.
Did you do your research? Because I did.
I knew that. I knew that without doing research, actually.
Okay, here we go. Folks, pulling from the fact sheet that probably I should have made into an actual fact sheet. Remember when we promised, or when I promised, like, oh yeah, by June.
Yeah, don't put it on me. You said you would do it. That was not my New Year's resolution.
Remember when I said by June I was going to have our fact sheets up to date?
That was a big fat lie.
People. Maybe by December. Just keep pushing it back. So Devil May Cry, originally released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2 by Capcom, everybody's favorite classic fighting game company.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally being developed as the 4th edition of the Resident Evil series, but they decided partway through development that it didn't really fit the horror feel, the horror tradition of Resident Evil, and that they were going to have to turn it into its own property.
Yeah, which ended up being good because everybody loves Resident Evil 4, as far as I know. So.
And it ended up being good because, as one reviewer described Devil May Cry, it, quote, makes Resident Evil look like a slow zombie. So, burn Resident Evil. It's based very loosely, I enjoy this as like a classics nerd, on Dante's Divine Comedy. So that's right, the Inferno that you read in high school or in college. It's back to haunt you in video game form.
Yeah. I don't actually know how much it's actually like the story is based on the story of the Inferno,
it's like
and how much they're like, these are cool names, let's take them.
Well, okay, so your protagonist's name is Dante. We've got this lady, so like in the Inferno, of course, Beatrice is dead, right? And so he goes to the underworld.
The Inferno, or whatever. Right?
What?
Yeah. The Inferno. Goes to the Inferno.
Well, yes. Yeah. He goes to the Inferno to, like, try to find her soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this one, we have Trish, who is actually, like, he does still sort of go to the underworld because of her, but not to find her soul, like, because she tells him to go fight demons.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Virgil is there.
Yeah. Who's his brother?
Yeah.
In the game.
So it's very, very, very loosely based on Dante's Inferno, but I don't know. I still think that's kind of cool that it's a video game based on this, like, what do you think Dante would think of that?
I think he'd be pretty confused.
There's, like, a moving picture interactive entertainment thing that we play on
and he's got, like,
screens.
Long, stylish, emo white hair.
I think he would have liked that part. That seems in keeping. But the rest of it, well, I don't know. Maybe Dante really would have. Maybe if he'd had some video games, he wouldn't have written such a fan service fan fiction of he goes to the underworld and meets all of his idols and also some evil people.
It is like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a self-insert fan fiction.
It's like a very well-researched self-insert fan fiction with
all the
references.
best ones are.
But, like, I bet you if you read it at the time, you'd be like, oh my god, like, Dante, you can't just, like, go meet Hercules. Like, it's not even real. Maybe I should write some self-insert fan fiction and somebody will make a, I don't know, amazing VR 12D version of it in like 500 years to play on Saturn.
Probably. You can publish your fan fiction as, porn for middle-aged people now, so.
Wow. Talking down fan fiction.
I'm not talking down fan fiction. I always think it's funny that the 50 Shades series was originally Twilight fan fiction. I just think that's hilarious.
Comes from a long tradition that dates back to the Inferno.
Yeah. The Inferno, 50 Shades of Grey, both read them in English class. Basically, same amount of relevant literature.
Actually, I do have vivid memories of some of the boys bringing 50 Shades of Grey to Miss Wagner's English class and reading some of it out loud. So you were saying that in jest, but it really did happen to me.
I remember, this is going into just our school days, entirely off topic, but my AP Euro teacher and our government teacher, who we both had for government, Mr. Howell, told us a story about how he read the 50 Shades series so that he could talk to the moms at his son's ballet class about something.
That does feel like something he would do, but that's funny.
Yeah. That's what we did in AP Euro, was mostly listen to him talk about his son's ballet class. Oh well.
Anyway, speaking of stylish things, so basically your goal in this game, and I'll get to why I use the transition, speaking of stylish things, in a minute. I realized I didn't quite want to say there yet. Mm-hmm. Oops. So you're Dante, your mother and your brother have just been murdered, and this mysterious woman shows up and, tells you to avenge their death by exterminating demons. So basically it's just, a very, very dark, Mario kind of thing. You're a plumber for the undead. Mm-hmm. Exterminating demons. I really think probably everything can eventually be, you could describe it in terms of, it's a very something Mario kind of thing.
Probably.
It's a 6 degrees of separation, but for Mario. Anyway, it's a hack and slash style game, which, as listeners know, is my favorite style of game, because it requires no skill on my part. Except that this game does sort of require skill. So it's mission-based combat, right? And your performance is graded from S rank to D. It was last week that I was talking about how I expect restaurants to get an S rank in their inspections now, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Well, here we are, tying it into this week, S to D ranking. And so you get scored based on how many enemies you defeat, how many items you get, but also on how stylishly you fight.
Yeah.
So you're fighting, your gauge for fighting as you land more attacks. I just think the rating is funny because I feel like we've talked a lot about weird difficulty rankings on this show, and different ways you can name those. I just think this naming system for this gauge of combat is really funny. So it's dull, cool, bravo, absolute, and
bravo,
stylish. I don't know why the top one is stylish.
Because you're stylish. You got white hair.
No, I mean, I get it, right? It's you fought in an elegant way, and it's cool looking. But you sort of have to think that, it must translate sort of weird.
Yeah, right? I always do wonder with, rankings, what in games like that, what the initial translation was, if it comes from Japan.
I just feel stylish, it can't mean, stylish. It just doesn't seem manly enough for a fighting game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it. I think it's awesome. But, who was yeah, stylish? I think it should be all about being stylish.
Well, that is sort of what's about, because the point of the combat is to try to chain up your combos so that you do more stylish attacks. So you look cooler as you're attacking.
I know.
As you land more hits, you're able to do more flashy kinds of stuff. So
right.
It's a faster-paced combat system that picks up as you do well.
Right. And it makes sense for you to have described it as stylish. I wouldn't, I heard you say that word, and I'm that's fine. That makes sense about what we're talking about. But, there's no way you would have used that word if the game hadn't already prompted you to.
That's not true. Stylish combat is, a quote. That's something you use to describe combat. Nier Automata, for instance, I would describe as having, anything by Platinum Games, really, I would describe as having stylish combat.
But would that really, I don't know. I don't
Which,
think it'll be
speaking of which, a lot of like Platinum Games Bayonetta, if for a point of reference for anyone who hasn't played Devil May Cry but has played those, it's very similar kind of.
Well, Bayonetta sort of
system.
literally evolved from this. Like,
Yeah.
the same people made it.
Really? I guess that I was
Some
wondering
of the
about
same
that.
people.
They must have formed Platinum from, what was it, Capcom?
Yeah, I know that some of the same people worked on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's in my notes.
But yeah, I would definitely, like, Bayonetta, for sure, I would describe as having stylish combat.
I know, but I wonder if the reason that you describe it using that word, and, like, you don't even know it, like, dates back to this game.
I don't think so. When you do something with style.
I know. I guess it's just not the word I would use.
It's weird when you, like, if someone does something cool and you say, ooh, stylish.
Can we make that happen? Can that be a Talk This catchphrase? Like,
Sure.
Look at this stylish thing we did this week.
Darn, that's stylish. But when using it to describe something, it makes more sense. So I do agree with you that as for a ranking system, having the top thing be stylish is a little weird. But if you're describing like, he does a stylish sword flip, that makes sense.
No, I get that. By the way, the first person to leave a review for us describing the podcast as stylish will shout you out on the air.
We are pretty stylish, even though you can't tell.
Yeah, I've got the striped linen shirt that I feel like every business type woman in New York owns.
Oh, well, I'm wearing my Avengers shirt that I got from the little boys section at Target.
I can't see it because you're looking at me with your forehead.
Oops.
Nice. Anyway, it's perhaps as a surprise to no one because it's on our old game list. Devil May Cry, huge success, right?
Yeah.
It's sold 3 million copies. It's been named as one of the most innovative video games of all time. I think if you go to that ubiquitous Wikipedia list of like important video, like they have like a page that's like,
yeah,
good, games that sold good. Or, like, influential video games. Guarantee it's on there. And can I spoil how old is this game? 17
years old? Sure, spoil it.
Alright, spoiler alert. Do they actually say Devil May Cry in the game? The end of the game is like, okay, so like Trish, our lady person who's taken us to fight the demons, like at the end, she starts to cry. And we know that she's become human because devils never cry.
Interesting.
That's what it says. It doesn't say Devil May, like, what does it mean? The title of the game is Devil May Cry, but at the end it says devils never cry.
Well, fun facts. The games are actually not in chronological order.
Yes.
Right? Devil May Cry 3 is actually the first one, chronologically. Which, they do say Devil May Cry in that one. And also, his shop, where they are demon slaying, is called Devil May Cry.
I thought it was called Devil Never Cry.
They rename it Devil Never Cry.
Neither of those sounds very good grammatically. I just want to point that out there.
Well, Devil May Cry is an actual saying, isn't it?
Is it?
I thought so.
Put it in the show notes, because I don't know.
The show notes. Put it in this non-existent thing.
You make the blog posts every week.
Oh, the blog post. I'm sorry.
Those are basically show notes. No, it's actually, it refers to the yearly, just tier session, yearly kind of like letting all the feelings out of the devils. It's the Devil May Cry.
Sure.
It's coming up.
I think I'm thinking of Devilman Crybaby.
What?
That's why I think it sounds familiar.
What is Devilman Crybaby?
Oh no, a Devil May Cry attitude. That's what it is.
Oh, that is, yeah. I thought it was Devil May Care.
I guess a Devil May Care attitude also.
Oh man. Learning colloquiums with the Talk This, not colloquiums, colloquialisms with the Talk This sisters.
Yep. But I
didn't
think
even
I was
laugh
thinking
about
of,
my joke about the
I
month
think
of May.
I was distracted looking it up.
The Devil May
But I think
Cry.
I'm thinking of the show Devilman Crybaby, which sounds similar.
Man, we should have pushed this off to our next episode, because then it could have been our first episode of May.
Ah, darn.
Missed our chance.
Oh, well.
Oh, the things that might have been.
Mm-hmm.
So, I probably shouldn't say this on the air, because, like, God knows I probably won't actually do it. But I'm thinking about doing a Watch This. Yes, me.
Ooh.
Doing a Watch This. Not of Castlevania, as I promised you.
A year ago.
6 months ago. Not a year ago.
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Not
7 years ago.
Yes, not then. But Devil May Cry has, not only did it have multiple games and an ill-received kind of reboot and 2 novels and a live-action film that's kind of been in the works forever but probably is never going to happen. But
like all movies.
Yes. Did you see that The Rock? Did you see what The Rock tweeted?
No, what did he tweet?
He's in some kind of video game movie right now.
Rampage, yeah.
Rampage. That apparently looks like it's gonna make it to a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
He tweets like wow, like maybe we've finally broken the video game curse. Like, and I know, like I was in like the Doom movie, a real stinker, and Doom tweets at him, Dwayne.
My gosh. Can't
Anyway.
say The Rock isn't candid.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so it's got a movie in development hell, like, you know, every video game that's ever sold a decent amount of copies.
Mm-hmm.
Except for Rampage, which is apparently, you know.
Well, Rampage is like a really old arcade game, I'm pretty sure.
Fair enough. But it does have something that did get made, is like a short anime series. So, it's on YouTube. It's weird, like you have to pay to get it on Crunchyroll, but then Funimation just has it up on YouTube.
Wait, yeah, they're all premium on Crunchyroll?
Well, I don't know. I don't understand how it works.
All Crunchyroll is free unless they've got a little crown icon in the
I thought they wanted me to
picture.
sign up for a free trial, but
You don't
maybe
have
that
to.
was just being advertised at me.
Usually the premium are just, like, you'll get now airing episodes a week behind
Oh.
on Crunchyroll.
Fine. I don't understand the internet. I admit
Whatever.
it. But it's on YouTube, it's on Crunchyroll, it's only like 12 episodes. They're only like 20 minutes long each. So, having said that, I almost certainly will not do it because I am booked solid. But I'm gonna try to do it. And if not, Emma's holding up the Watch This mantle for us right now anyway.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else you want to say about Devil May Cry?
Well, I think, and we won't talk about this too much because it doesn't fall under the old game category, but I think the reboot that Capcom did, DMC, is a real interesting example of how trying to bank in on name recognition can kind of backfire on you.
What do you mean?
Well, it's a huge reboot. They redesigned Dante. They upheld the combat system, I'm pretty sure. It's a little bit more lighthearted. I'm not sure that's the right word. But it was developed by a new team. And so they sort of use the name, but it's a very different feeling kind of game, right? So it gets attention, right, because it's called Devil May Cry.
Right.
It's the game in the Devil May Cry series. People like that series. But then when it comes out, even though like critical opinion since then has evolved to be like, it's a good game. It's just not a Devil May Cry game, right? So for all the goodness in it, people who play it are like, this sucks, because that's not what they were expecting to get out of it. But mostly I wanted to bring that up because it was developed by Ninja Theory, and speaking of ninjas, developed by Team Ninja was Nioh.
Nice. Wait, I have one other thing to add. Say
Sure.
the name of our old game again.
Devil May Cry.
Say it one more time, sorry.
Devil May Cry.
You hit it differently. So I
I was wondering why you were saying it that way. It's a sentence. Like, the devil may cry.
I get
like,
that, and
devil
I know
may cry.
I objectively know the way that you pronounce it makes more sense, but I'm just saying it as the title of a video game. Devil May Cry.
That's like devil and may are adjectives on cry.
Yeah.
Oh yes, the devil may cry.
That's the joke I made that you weren't listening to earlier.
Oh, sorry.
When the devils just like let out all that stress they're feeling in the 5th month of the year.
That's true.
The devil
You're right.
may
I missed that joke.
Anyway, I stomped all over your transition. Team Ninja, games created by teams of ninjas. Nioh.
I just thought it was funny because your joke at the beginning was there was Nioh difference between the two or whatever. I just thought it was funny that they both have 2 different teams, but both ninjas involved in their development.
Mm-hmm.
Developed by 2 different teams of ninjas.
That's funny.
One of them is only ninjas in theory. The other one is actually ninjas.
Yes, sure.
Ninja Theory and Team Ninja.
Yeah, okay, I gotcha. That's funny. You're funny, Emma.
I am funny, thank you.
So, Nioh, here we go. Gonna read from my notes again. People get excited.
Did you say Nioh?
Is it my notes?
Oh, I gotcha.
It was released in, I think it's February, but it was 2017 for PS4 and Microsoft Windows.
Yeah.
It was developed by Team Ninja, but it was originally worked on by, and I am not going to be able to pronounce this right, Koei Tecmo?
I think it's Koei Tecmo.
Koei Tecmo, which also, and like, you're going to be like, I don't remember this game. They also developed Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Right. I think we've talked about this before, actually. I don't remember it particularly well.
It was boring. It's the worst video game I've ever played, and I don't really remember it either, but I remember we got it out from, like, it wasn't even Blockbuster. It was just, like, the neighborhood video game rental store down at the Chesterbrook Shopping Center, which I think now might be a test prep place, but I don't remember. And it was really bad and boring and super boring. Anyway. I don't really remember what the game was about, so don't take that as a real recommendation, but, like, also it was boring and you shouldn't play it. It's an action RPG, it's a JRPG. It was originally based on an Akira Kurosawa unfinished script called Oni, and that was the original working title of the game when it began development in 2004.
Yep.
That's right, people.
And if you don't know who Akira Kurosawa is, he did Rashomon.
And Seven Samurai.
Mm-hmm.
He's a famous Japanese filmmaker. If you've seen a samurai movie, it's probably him. Although that's not all he did, certainly. Anyway. Yeah, it began development in 2004, so it took them officially 13 years to get this game to your screen. Which I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. I think that's insane.
To be fair, it was originally based on the script, but since they didn't...
Right, they threw it out. They started over, basically. I get that.
So it's not like they worked on one thing for 8 years. I always feel like that's a misunderstanding with games that have big development cycles. For a lot of them, is like they've been working on the same thing for this many years. It's like, no, they got 3 years into development on something, decided it was crap, and started over.
I get that, but it's still ultimately the same project. Like, I know that it changes and takes different... It's not like it took them 13 years to literally code this game and create the game, but they were still, like, working on this game for 13... I just can't imagine working on something for 13 years. That's all.
Well, probably, unless you were high up, you probably weren't working on it for that long. You're probably taken on and off the project. Especially since this is a bigger release. They're probably working on different things.
That's fair, but I have delusions of grandeur, Emma. Anyway, it's an interesting concept for the game, and I feel like we were talking very, very, very early on in our episodes. I think in our God of War episode, which is timely, about how we see tons of games, and this is timely for our old game too. We see a lot of games that are based on kind of Greek and Roman mythology, and Devil May Cry, if you pronounce it in a way that makes sense, is of course based on something that springs out of that, right? Kind of our Italian Renaissance tradition. I mean, it's not really based on that, but whatever. It's got the elements of that. And we talked in that episode about how, like, oh, how cool would it be if there was a game that, like, talked about a different kind of mythology, right? That was based on some kind of Asian mythology. I'm sure we said that. This is not based on Asian mythology. It's based on actual kind of Japanese history, although using some kind of Japanese spiritual...
Yeah, Japanese supernatural elements.
So, literally, and we recorded that God of War episode, too, like, early January of 2017. So, these people were doing it for us, and we didn't even know. We didn't even Nioh.
Aww.
Anyway, somebody's stealing our game idea. I knew it would happen. I wish they would have credited us.
Yeah.
But
I mean, to be fair, I think that after Greek and Roman mythology, probably Japanese mythology is the second most common.
Sure, that's fair.
Or second or third most common.
A lot of Japanese game developers. That makes sense. Still, though, I don't feel like you see it that much in kind of mainstream gaming, so it's cool.
Sure.
So it's set in the early 1600s in Japan during the Sengoku period, which is the civil war that comes right prior to the Tokugawa shogunate. And it's based on, like, real people. Like, these are real people. So there's this sailor named William, who teams up. He's from the West. He's like a Western sailor. And in real life, I think he was like some kind of merchant or something, but he ends up in Japan. And he teams up with Hattori Hanzo, who is a servant of Tokugawa, of shogunate fame, and basically becomes a Western samurai.
Yeah.
Which I feel like there would be some issues with this game and, like, appropriation and, like, why do we have to have this, like, white guy in the lead, except that, like, he's a real person.
Plus it's developed by all Japanese people.
Yeah. There's still racism in Japan.
I know, I'm sure. But you can't really say you can't call it appropriation.
I'm sorry, that probably wasn't the right word. Issues of representation.
There you go.
But yeah, and in a lot of ways, it's very similar to Devil May Cry. I'm gonna try out an alternate, like a third pronunciation, our other option. So we also sort of have this mission-based combat, right? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. But the combat itself is different. You have mission-based scenarios. I think that's the better way to say it. But in Devil May Cry, it's more about hitting the buttons right and chaining the combos, whereas in Nioh, it's more of a Souls-like style where you have to be careful and not get hit and sort of be more strategic as you're fighting. It's a slower paced style of fighting.
And so you have, as in this combat system, do you think it's a chi meter? A ki meter? It's Ki.
Kai, maybe? Ki? Probably ki.
I don't know what it would be in Japanese, so I'm struggling. A ki meter that, like, it drains as you take certain actions. So it's if you fight, if you move, whatever, this ki meter is being drained. And so if you time it right, you can replenish it with a ki pulse that powers you up. But if you don't, you kind of have to run back to a shrine to, like, replenish. But also, and this was why I was thinking that you had played it, but I realized now that it was a different game. When you go back to the shrine, all the enemies come back.
Oh, because I was complaining about Iconoclast last time?
Yes.
Yes, very similar. Iconoclast is exactly like Nioh.
I think that you're teasing me because I don't really know. I'm sure it's not.
No, it is not.
Anyway.
But Nioh also makes use of the now relatively popular mechanic to, when you die, you have to get back to where you died in order to get back your experience and items that you had when you died. And if you die again before you get back to your body, you lose all that stuff.
Oof.
So that started with Bloodborne and Dark Souls and Demon Souls, which was the predecessor to Dark Souls, I think. This idea that trying to have like your deaths have more consequence, I guess.
Yeah, and that's like an interesting mechanic. I guarantee it's one that I personally would find very frustrating because I like to be good at things and not have to do things over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the worst. I'm like the worst target for a video game. Like I don't want it to be too easy, but I want to be really good at it right away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to do it twice. Anyway, there's all sorts of other kind of interesting combat mechanics. You can like take different stances that prioritize offensive or defensive. You can summon spirits. And what you're doing, I don't think I really explained it. So it's this like time of civil war, and in this time of chaos, you have to defeat these monsters, these demons called the yokai. So in that way, very similar to Devil May Cry, because it's all about this dude defeating demons. They built the engine from scratch. Can you imagine that?
No. I mean, can I imagine that? No.
I just feel like
companies have their own... I don't know how people build engines necessarily, but, you know, a lot of companies have their own engines.
I know.
That perhaps are based off something, but...
It just seems like so much work.
I'm sure it is. But I guess if you want it to work exactly the way you want it to work, that's what you gotta do.
So it seems like there's a pretty rich tradition in video games fighting like demons and creatures.
Sure.
And I wonder why we like that.
Well, no, I mean, I guess this not necessarily a problem in a lot of video games or in our culture, but no moral gray area there.
Sure.
Rip apart those demons, tear their head off, shove a sword through their face. You know, they're demons. Plus, it's an easy metaphor. Plus, you can make creepy designs. I don't know. There's a lot of room for creativity in demons there's a lot of room for creativity without being too creative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can do like cool designy things while like you have a demon, like we don't have to work too hard to convince you should fight it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't want to call it a lazy storytelling mechanic, but it is a little. Not in a bad way necessarily, like I know lazy sounds like it's bad, but it's a really easy shorthand of just like, this is something you should destroy.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing in any story.
No, I don't either.
I feel like sometimes stories get caught up in needing to be unique, and it's like, well... And there's only a certain amount of things you can come up with that aren't the same thing, you know? In terms of, like, enemies. Like, whatever enemy you come up with, you can be like, human, animal, demon, other creature. Spirit. But, like, demons and spirits, are those that different? They fall under the same category of supernatural threat, right?
Yeah.
There's human threat, natural threat, supernatural threat.
I'm trying to think if there's, like, any other, like, enemies. Even types that there could be. Plants.
Natural threat.
Okay, fine. Natural threat. You're right. I guess, like
threat from within. You fight yourself. There you go.
No, I didn't mean fight from within. I meant like fighting against like starvation or.
Oh, I see. Sure.
Or staying warm. Like, that's a fight in
That's
Zelda
that's definitely
sometimes.
a different threat. I was thinking more enemy types. But
Totally.
like, yeah, sure. A human threat, natural threat.
Aliens.
Supernatural threat. What is that even? Extraterrestrial threat?
Yeah.
Sure. And
existential.
Sure, existential threat. Those are your 5 categories you can have really in a story. I'll challenge you to come up with any other threats.
Cool threat. Stylish threat.
Yeah, stylish threat. Shit, she's way more stylish than I am. I gotta step up my sneaker game.
Like a social threat? That probably falls under human, but...
Yeah. There are, if you can break those 5 categories down into different categories, sure, and there's a lot of room for variety in there. But I always think it's interesting that at the end of the day, most stories you can break down into really similar beats to other stories, which doesn't make them bad. It just means that there's certain tools that we have and we can shape those however we want. And just because something seems similar to something else doesn't mean that it doesn't have its own merits.
I've got another one. Falling block threat.
Random occurrence threat. There you go.
No, I mean
suddenly a piano falls from the sky.
I meant like in Tetris. I didn't mean like,
time. I guess there could be a time threat also.
Oh yeah. That's deep.
There you go.
Maybe we should be using this. I feel like we should.
Although a time threat would probably, like, there has to be some reason you have a time threat, right? So that would probably also overlap with one of the other categories.
Yeah. This
We'd
is
have to
interesting.
talk about
we
this
should
more.
be using this in creating our mashups to like find things to break things apart a little more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Or like points. I'm just thinking of like in terms of video games now. Like how can you be punished? Like points threat. You have to get
threat.
a certain amount of points.
But doing what, right?
Yeah, I know. Doing
also, that's not
6 skateboarding moves.
I think there's a difference between what the threat materializes as within the game, what it's symbolized by, right? And what the player feels the threat for.
I think I
right,
understand
because there's like death. Is that something that the player can get, or losing, or running out of time, or
ranking?
Yeah. But that's different things, right? That can apply across a variety of
robots.
Manifestations of threats. Technological threat, you're right.
Boom.
Still, though, if you really think about it, you could even break it further down into, like, you know, physical threat, mental threat, spiritual threat.
I feel like we're doing, like, 5th grade English here of, like, person versus themselves, person versus person.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what it is, right?
Yeah.
You learn those things for a reason, so that you could break down stories better.
I just think it's interesting that... I mean, I guess, I don't know, it should make sense, right? Like, it's not like we've changed that much since 2001. But that, like, we still like our demon stories, just, like, hack and slash the demons away.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, some of the gameplay elements will change, but fundamentally, that same story, we still like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting. That's all.
We still like war stories, too.
Yeah, but I feel like that's maybe, yeah. I'm trying to turn this into something deep, and I guess it's not really that deep. We like carnage.
Yeah. I mean, especially in our entertainment.
For sure.
Which isn't a bad thing and won't turn you into a horrible person.
Yes, the standard Talk This disclaimer.
If anything, it you know, it's just a catharsis type thing. We talked about this in one of my college classes because I'm a college-educated person.
Whoa.
There's a chapter in something storyteller book that's hell is story friendly. Because, like, if you read a story about, oh, the father takes his daughter to the store and sees a suspicious man. Oh, but then the man goes away and he and his daughter go home. That's like a fundamentally less interesting story than like the man goes with his daughter to the store, sees a suspicious man, he looks away for a second, and then his daughter and the man are gone. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a
and
horrible
then
thing and not
Liam
something we would...
Neeson stars.
Exactly,
Taken
yeah.
5.
In the cereal aisle.
Taken 5, serial killer.
Oh gosh. But yeah, like, it's something we fundamentally would not want to happen to us or anyone who we care about, but within our fiction, we want to see that stuff because we're fundamentally morbid people.
Unless you're Dante. I mean, granted, nobody wants their girlfriend to die, but we all want to go to the underworld and meet, like, our buddies. And the other cool people we want to know.
That's true.
And we'd still study that one.
I guess so, you're right. But anyway, we should really mash up now. Because we've talked a really long time about pretentious English class stuff.
So, I don't know how, like, I feel like it's very difficult to mash up these games because, yeah, the combat mechanics are different, of course, and the setting is different, but fundamentally, these are very similar in terms of, like, the conflict at the heart of them. My suggestion to Emma via text when I mentioned this to her yesterday as I was creating my notes was that we do it as just, like, a tour of the world, like, combat thing. Actually, that might not be so bad. Wait, I was suggesting this as a joke, but I have a thought. So, like, you're, like, the demon hunter.
Sure.
Right? You're Dante.
Running in your shop, Devil May Cry.
Right, but you're, like, a demon travel agent. Not a travel agent, but you have to travel all over the world to exterminate demons, but while you're there, you have to learn the combat style of that region. So, it's a game, all your missions have a different combat style. So, like, when you're in Japan, you have to fight as a samurai. When you're in Italy, I don't know, you're a medieval knight. When you're in America, you're in the Wild West. And, like, the combat mechanics are different in each one, and you have to, like, learn it. It might be best as kind of a downloadable, episodic kind of game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if it was episodic, that could work. I think if you were making a full game, I like the idea of being, like, the demon bounty hunter mercenary that's in demand, so you take on jobs all over the world. But I think that in, like, a $60 one-time buy game, it would be better if just you had the same combat style, but the enemies there were fundamentally different, so you had to get used to fighting against the enemy's combat style.
But I have to imagine that's true in these games that already exist, and all we've done is being like, you're doing it around the world! So, I don't know if it's a very unique contribution.
Well, you know, maybe one, it has to do with, like, you're making sure you're equipped right, too.
Yeah,
right?
okay,
So
you
maybe
get bonuses
maybe
for
one,
costumes.
you need to do it needs to be ranged, or maybe one, it's slow but hits really hard, so you should bulk up on your armor, or go really light and try to out-fast it. Outrun it.
Okay, this is a solid idea. What other ideas do we have?
Nothing! No. You're in Japan, and your girlfriend dies, and you have to go into the Japanese underworld, which I don't think is actually a thing, and save her.
No. That's based on the Inferno. That's not based on Devil May Cry.
It's okay. I don't think the Japanese have, I think the, like, Japanese folklore is sort of Shinto.
Yeah.
I don't think they have an underworld.
Great, so it's offensive and not based on our old game. Good. This seems like it's going well.
Yeah. So,
It's fan fiction.
you're a devil, and you're on a quest in Japan to discover your need to cry.
Oh my god. Okay, but I think that you're a devil thing, we might have something there. What if we just flipped it on its head? And you're like the demon running an agency to kill devil hunters.
Mm-mm.
And you have...
So like a bloodier Grim Fandango.
But you have franchises all over the world. And you have to go like visit your branches. Like you're like...
So it's like a city builder, but also a hack and slash game.
It's like a what?
A city builder, but also a hack and slash.
Not a city builder, someone just like running a business. So you're gonna have to like close branches that aren't delivering.
And then what happens to those people? They just never die?
What do you mean they never die?
Well, your branches are I guess you're demons, so it's not necessarily
they're transferred or they're let go. You have to disperse your demon hunter hunting resources accordingly. This doesn't come from the original games at all.
No, it doesn't.
But I think doing it backwards as like you're a demon and you have to go after the demon hunters would be a new twist on this story. We could even work in a morality system wherein eventually you lose your demon status and become a demon hunter.
Interesting.
You cry.
Or it could be a commentary on how demons are just like us.
No, you have to be careful never to start crying, so you can't ever look at anything too sad.
Oh my god.
Because devils never
Or else you
cry.
turn into a human?
Yeah.
Because devils never cry?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I kind of like that one. That'd be a good phone game.
Yeah.
Just like, don't look at anything sad.
That's pretty good.
Alright. I think we got 2 solid game ideas there, Emma.
Oh, yeah. Solid. Totally feasible.
Look, if I title it Devil Face, Pink Flower, Crying Face Emoji, everyone will buy it.
Yeah. That's a super easy thing to get search engine traction for.
It'll be the only, like, if I make that my SEO keyword, it'll be the only page that has that keyword.
So anyone searching those random 3 emojis will find it.
Yep.
The whole 3 people in the world.
We'll call it DF, PF, CF, E.
Devil face, pink flower, crying face emoji?
Yeah.
Took me a second to figure out. I thought you were going devil flower, and then you just started doing random letters. But I got it.
So, that's our mashup this week. If you have a better idea for mashing up these 2 games, please let us know. Send it to us. You can send it to us via email at talktous, T-O, not the number 2. talktous@talkthispodcast.com. You can also use our contact form, which I believe is www.talkthispodcast.com/contact. But you're better off just going to the main site and clicking on the Contact Us button of the menu. While you're there, telling us about how, like, you have much better mashups than we do, which, of course, you do. Those were terrible. You should also check out the rest of the content on our blog. On our blog and on our website. So on our blog, we have up this week a bunch of new stuff. Emma's Watch This on Persona 5, right?
Yep.
Is up. I'm finally playing Persona 5, y'all. Champ McDude's adventures are continuing. We'll talk about that next week. But also on the blog, there's a new edition of Clickbait Boyfriend, wherein Josh visits the Moogles and goes to Mulan World and is in Traverse Town and all sorts of good stuff. The next edition coming up...
Well, he's not in Traverse Town.
Not in Traverse Town, I'm sorry. The new Traverse Town in Kingdom Hearts 2, Hollow Bastion.
There you go.
The next edition is going to be great because it features the Pirates of the Caribbean world, which Josh has very strong feelings about.
I think everybody has very strong feelings about it.
Anyway, and Atlantica, which he has perhaps even stronger feelings about. So y'all, if you're not caught up on your Clickbait Boyfriend Season 2, you need to catch up because the next edition coming hopefully in the next week or so is going to be killer. So that's up. There's a new Buzz This of Which Overwatch Character Are You? Part 2. this time, if you look at our Facebook post about it, you'll see that some of my dreams did come true. Speaking of which, you should follow us on our social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, all Talk This Podcast. There you can see our latest posts on our blog. You can see sometimes what we're playing and our thoughts about games that we're playing. You can see articles that we like. You can see tasty memes. Really all the video game content that you want. It's there. Let's see. What else do I have to pitch for you?
We are also on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Talk This Sisters. And this week, because it's Sunday, there will be a new Play This on Fire Emblem coming out to all y'all.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love watching the Play This.
I'm still working on the script right now, because it's a little salty.
Oh.
I need to tone down the salt.
The best. Season me. Give me that salty goodness.
But up there already, we have one on Kingdom Hearts and one on Danganronpa V3, along with Flashback Fridays, where Madelyn puts together some of the best clips from some of our old episodes, because we know it can be pretty daunting to go back and look at our full list of episodes. So if you just want to get the highlights, that's the place to go.
All right, I'm going to pitch where you can listen to our show, but Emma, do you want to get the hats ready?
The hats are already ready.
Oh, great. So instead of that, she can listen to me pitch. So you're listening to us, so you found us somewhere, but if this is not the most convenient place to listen for you, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Spotify. So you can listen to us on the go, at your computer, on a run, whatever it is that you do. Listen in to Talk This. You should also leave us a review or a rating. Like I said earlier, first person to call this podcast stylish, we'll shout you out on the air. So
wins a shout out.
So everyone's dream come true. Tell your friends about us, tag us in things, send us things on social media. We love talking to fans. We really do. You don't understand how excited we get when we hear from fans. So tell us things. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't. Next week on the show, be another edition of our Save Data side quests, where you'll hear about what we've been playing this week. As I already mentioned, been playing some Persona 5, The Adventures of Champ McDude. Continue.
Woo!
McDude-san. But now it's time for us to pick the games that I will inevitably forget within about 24 hours for our next full episode in 2 weeks.
Yep, so per usual, we start with our old game. So Madelyn, tell me when I should draw.
When?
Silent Hill.
Oh, nice. Silent
Keep
Hill.
it on the horror theme from last full episode.
Well, great. 'Tis the season.
Oh yeah, spooky May. Okay, so tell me when for the new game now.
Alright, give me what? Lay it on me.
I will lay it on you. Ooh, Yakuza 0 or 6, which is the most recent one, but we can talk about both probably.
Great. Overwhelming for me. I love it.
Yakuza.
Alright.
I'm super excited.
So tune in 2 weeks. We release our podcast every Sunday, full episodes every 2 weeks. Side quests on the alternating dates. We're excited to share these 2 games with you next week. Or not next week, in 2 weeks. And our thoughts about what we've been playing next week. Emma, do you want to sign off or do you want me to sign off today?
You go ahead and sign off, Madelyn.
Alright. There's no way you're gonna have a bad week this week because
Just stop.
Devil May Cry.